And we should be live very, very soon. I'm assuming the chat will blow up as soon as they see us.
There I am.
Oh, there you are. Can you guys hear us? Got it. As soon as mute your Twitch, Soto. Twitch is not live, bro. Nope, Twitch isn't live. Can you guys hear me? All right. Boom. All right, sounds good. All right, so hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Red Report. Red Report will be a series of interviews focusing on the characters and personalities of poker. There will be some strategy, but for the most part, we'll focus on the lifestyles of those who come through the game. I ask that you hold your questions until the Q&A segment. You'll have plenty of time to ask our guest all the questions you want. But if you must, in the meanwhile, you can talk in the chat and tell him how awesome he is. With that said, it's now time to welcome our first guest, Matt Berkey. How are you?
Fantastic. Yourself?
It's good to have you on, man. It was a little hard, but we got through it.
Yeah, I mean, timing wasn't great, but, we'll get there.
All right. So, for those of us who are not familiar with you or don't know your backstory, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into poker.
I mean, I'm not going to bore you with the details of my life, but as far as getting into poker, I started, just screwing around in high school with a couple of my buddies playing, mostly 7-card variations because it was the mid-90s, and that's what people did. Watched Rounders, closer to my senior year, started playing a little No Limit, but never really thought much of it. And then when I went to college, it was actually a good way to bridge the gap between being an upperclassman and upperclassman on the baseball team. So we would gamble often on baseball trips and things of that nature. So it was kind of my in with the older crowd, especially because I didn't drink. I've actually never drank. So it was a rough go of things as a freshman. It was very easy for me to get picked on, and this kind of helped me a lot. And then when the boom set in and Moneymaker shipped the name, it was really easy to find a game. I was just always a little bit better than everybody else. I really don't know why. Maybe just I guess I kind of had an understanding of game theory despite not knowing what it was. And I was able to just grind out small wages through college, enough to make my way, pay a little bit towards my tuition, still have some spending money, still have enough to play, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
All right, awesome. So the chat says that they're having a little bit of problem hearing you. Do you have any? There's two options. Either you can get a little bit closer, or if you have a headset or earbuds or whatever, that would be awesome too.
Man, I ain't putting on no headset.
All right. Yeah. Or
I'll get uncomfortable and get a little bit closer to y'all.
All right.
I wanted to say yin, but I don't want to make fun of there. All right, on that.
All right. Hopefully that helps out a little bit better. Okay. So 2010. Let's rewind the clock a little bit. You finished 43rd in the main event for over $200,000. Tell us about that experience a little bit, and unfortunately, tell us a little bit about the bust-out hand versus the eventual champion, Jonathan Duham.
All right. So leading into 2010, I was coming off of grinding online for the first time really ever. I've always been a live cash guy, but I was given the opportunity to have partial backing for online tournaments, so I just gave it a really good go for 6 months, and actually ended up chopping the 750K on full tilt February of that year. So For the first time, I was able to like play a multitude of events during the series. I think I ended up playing like 10 events on my own and bricked them all leading into the main. But I was killing cash and felt pretty confident about it. Obviously, the main like lends itself a little bit more to a cash player as you're deep for longer and you can make like a lot more like neutral decisions pre without being punished as hard. I kind of kept top fire and was playing pretty well. I actually got crippled on day 2 to I think like 4 big blinds from like 100.
Wow.
It's funny, I don't remember the hand right now. Because I actually got crippled like 2 or 3 times leading into the money. So like day 2 I got crippled, and then early day 3, I was able to actually like run a stack back up to like 50 bigs, and then got crippled again with kings versus jack 8 and 9 on a 8-7-7 4 board where they killed the K 8 on the river. But yeah, I had some good fortune. Ended up like limping my way into day 4, and just had a really good table draw. Ran it up huge. Made the money no problem. Went deeper into the event, and then I got.
Yeah. Yeah, that handle was pretty unfortunate. But so one of the questions that is brought up a lot from people that are not familiar with poker is it common for poker players to come into large sums of money like you did in 2010 of $200,000?
I got to tell you, up until that point, the answer was without a question, no. I mean, probably the first 7 years of playing, I was within a couple people of having, $250,000, $500,000, maybe even $1 million to my name, and walking away with like 20 or 30,000. Like, it's just such a tough game because, especially in tournament play, the money's all at the top.
Right.
And when you start racking up a lot of 5th and 8th place finishes, it just doesn't really equate to much.
Right.
And for cash, it's like, I mean, anybody who knows me understands that, like, I've always been the kind of guy who doesn't play it cautiously. I've been very close to broke a multitude of times, and, when I say close to broke, I mean basically poker broke, where it's like you might have just enough to pay bills, but you're not really in play unless you're like able to get loans, able to borrow, whatever the case may be. That's happened to me a lot because I've always been of the mindset of playing to my skill rather than to my bankroll. Mm-hmm. And it's like when you only have 10 or 20,000, what's the difference between that and broke?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So like, it's tough to just get out there and try to grind through 1, 2, and 2, 5 and hope to make it. Especially like the way I started. When I first started, games were like, at most 100 big blind cap. Like the first game I started playing at a casino was 5-5 $200 max, and it seems unbeatable with the rate by today's game, and of course it would be. But back then, it's like people still did so many things awfully. Like they would just fold so incorrectly, and the money was loose. So it's like you never worried about your bankroll being at risk. And like for that reason alone, it's like I had a ton of opportunities to come into big money like that, mm-hmm. But when you fall short, you're still just at risk all the time. Yeah. Like I'd be playing 20 on like a 20K roll, and when things went well, I'd have 100K by the end of the year. When things went poorly, I'd be grinding through 5, waiting to get back on my feet.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's a very interesting thing. Like you've even told me like I should take more shots and stuff like that. And I think that's something that a lot of people lack. Just not being too risk adverse versus like not taking enough shots.
Right. So yeah, risk is a funny thing. I mean, it's like we gravitate towards security, but we all yearn for the big rewards. And it's just like really difficult to have the best of both worlds. You kind of have to stick your neck out a little bit. And I would never encourage anybody to do what I did through the come up just because the game's so much more difficult now. Like you have to be able to handle the swings. You have to be able to handle the variance.
Yeah.
And being a little more conservative with your bankroll requirements is a necessity for sure. But along the same lines, it's like, you'll just never get over that hump if you don't start taking big risks. you have to like just invest in your skill set and hope to land on your feet. It's why like a lot of wealthy people are very intelligent, but they're also very fortunate. You know what I mean? For every guy who's made it, there's 3 or 4 guys of equal caliber that just kind of fell flat, and it's just a thing of variance.
Exactly. So you obviously have a handful of WSOP final table finishes under your belt, right? And
Sure.
so what are your plans for this summer? And should I take some bracelet bets on your behalf?
Um, I'll play a full schedule. If last year's any indication, then no, I wouldn't take any on my behalf. I think I went like 0 for 29 last year. But for what it's worth, that's the first time I've ever bricked a series in my life.
Yeah, before that you had 5 final tables. The year
No,
before.
that was 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. All right.
2 years ago, I made 3 final tables. Last year, I didn't make a single dinner break. So, I mean, I guess it all comes out in the wash. I'm really looking forward to this series. They changed the structure of everything. You get more chips per event now. I think you get a quadruple stack now. Maybe
Something
sounds
like
about right.
So, for those people that don't know what a bracelet bet, can you tell us a little bit what that is?
I mean, I guess there's like numerous ways of doing it. I think the most common is just crossbook, where either you're laying a guy odds or you're basically just like betting against him. Honestly, I've never really done a bracelet bet. Mercier would be a better person to ask. He does them every year. I'm fairly certain the majority of them just all crossbook. I'm just not exactly certain like the details as to how that works.
Okay, I think that's fair. I mean, it's definitely getting more and more popular. So that's cool.
To me, it seems really stupid. I mean, the fields are just massive, and it's like if you don't play mixed games, you're a huge dog to ever win a bracelet bet. So it's like if you consider yourself to be really good and you're going to play a full schedule, you're still going to need like massive odds to take on a bracelet bet of any sort.
Yeah. So
like people say 5 to 1 is kind of like a joke.
No, yeah, nobody would take that. So obviously you're primarily known as a cash game player, but ironically you're coming off another huge score, finishing second in a WSOP circuit event not too long ago. Can you give us a little insight into that tournament? And I also heard you arrived late for day 2 as a chip leader, by the way.
I very often arrive late on day 2. Let's not get the word out about that. I don't do well with scheduled events at all. Yeah, no, the tournament was great. I played day 1 and I was chip leader through about 5/6 of it, and then Joseph Chong got moved to my right for the last level and a half, and we pretty much just played for it all over and over. He had actually rebought and came in with the minimum and just doubled through me twice, and ultimately, I think, man, I don't even remember how he busted me. I want to say it was something sick, like set over set, or he hit a set on my overpair, something like that. Anyway, he finished day 1A as the chip leader, and I went home with 12 minutes left in the day. And I was actually going to skip day 1B because I was scheduled to play cash that day. But the cash game fell through, and honestly, it was the softest field I've played in quite some time. So couldn't resist. Went back and actually finished day 1B as the chip leader, which really doesn't mean much, but it speaks to the softness of the field for sure.
Right. I mean, so one of the questions I get often is like, you'll know this pretty well because you transition from cash to tournaments and stuff like that. Do you have any tips from people that want to improve in tournaments that are, cash game players?
Yeah. Forget everything you know about cash. Like, I think the biggest mindset for cash players to get over is the concept that tournaments aren't poker. Not in the general sense that we know anyway. Like, you're not outmaneuvering people after the flop very often at all. And the name of the game isn't really to look for hidden value or, run big bluffs or outmaneuver people in big spots or anything like that. Like, when you play cash, you understand that every pot you win is physical money in your pocket. Like, you can count that as profit in the here and now. Like, if you rack up and leave right now, you're up whatever you just won. In tournaments, pots are effectively meaningless. They're life, but chips devalue as you accumulate them. So the reality of the situation is it's so much more of a tactical game. It's all about like understanding generic spots, understanding your basic strategy and how it will help you to navigate the field rather than trying to exploit a particular style or a particular player or things like that. It's why you see so many weak players doing extremely well in tournament play, because they can stand to be non-confrontational versus really good players. Right. They can just sit there and play tightly and stay out of their way and just know that their table is eventually going to break and they'll find better spots. You can't do that in cash. You can't run and hop.
Yep.
You'll just be a target. And you can't just hope to break even in like neutral lineups in lieu of finding a better spot. Because if there's a spot at the game, all of the best players are going after it. So you're just never going to find a good scenario to like counterattack. You have to strategize there. And in tournaments, it's just like there's very little poker knowledge that's necessary. It's so much more about the structure, so much more about capitalizing on easy layup spots of stealing, knowing when to steal, knowing your push-fold charts, knowing your ICM. A lot of stuff that cash game players are just extremely weak on.
Right. I think that's good. Let's move on to a separate topic of coaching.
Okay.
So in 2012, Russell Thomas makes the WSOP main event final table. He hires Jason Somerville to help him win it, and then Jason Somerville brings you in along with a crew of players to help him along. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
That was one of my favorite poker experiences ever. Not necessarily because it was like that informative, and I thought we did such an amazing job that Russ couldn't help but win, but more so just because like it was, I guess it was like my first insight to really enjoying like camp like atmosphere for baseball or for poker. So like I grew up going to camps like that for baseball,
right?
Where you would just like go stay away for a week and have like the nation's top coaches come in, really grill you and run you through the ringer and just basically expect you to get better when it was all said and done. And it's like, not only did we
Yep, we are back. Sorry
about that. That's my fault. We're packing up to move, and the router was first to go.
All good, no problem. It's probably a combination. It's probably a combination of both our faults anyway. But
it was 100% mine. The router got unplugged.
Oh, whoops. All right.
Yeah.
So, 1 second. Let me just revamp here. All right. So, sorry about that, everybody. So, where were we? 2012. Russell Thomas makes the WSOP final table. Jason Somerville is brought in to help him win it, and he brings in an entire crew to help him do it, and he brings you in as well. So, can you tell us a little bit about that and your experiences with it?
Yeah, so like I was saying before, that was like literally one of the most fun things I've ever done with poker. In a general sense, I don't care to make friends with poker players. I just kind of see it affecting my bottom line. There's a lot of nice guys out there, and I hang out with a few. But in a general sense, it's a very competitive game, and I want to maintain that edge. With the final table that we did with Russ, it was just like such an awesome experience in the sense that it was extremely competitive, and we were all there to make each other better, which is an awesome environment in and of itself. But then doing the video too was just a ton of fun. It was like a chance for us to have an outlet for our thoughts and kind of let loose. I personally knew Greggy, Jesse, and Optimus fairly well at the time from playing cash. More so Greggy and Jesse than Jeremy. But I was pretty akin to their style. I understood it pretty well, and I got to play Greggy the entire time. And obviously it wasn't the same as being at the final table, but from a mechanical standpoint, the things that we could do with the stacks and stuff like that, it was just an absolute blast to gun for Russ and really let him know the pitfalls of things that could happen if he's not careful. Basically just bringing him back down to earth a little bit. Not that he's overinflated, he's the least egotistical kid I've ever run into. But it's you're about to be at the final table with the main event. It's really tough not to think that you're one of the best.
Right.
And it was just it was my mission to just continually remind him hey, you're playing for $8 million, and there's some really good fucking players to your left.
Yeah.
Pardon my language.
No, it's fine.
So it's I got to play as Greggy the whole time, and our styles are pretty similar. And it was just an absolute blast to just kind of get as far outside the box as I could and try to figure out things that we could do with these stack sets, with Russ's tendencies, with Greggy's tendencies, et cetera, et cetera. And that was actually where the whole cage thing came from that Jay Carver's so fond of using.
So Jay Carver kind of stole that one from you.
I'm happy to give it to him. He seems to be doing quite the job with it.
Yeah. So, do you think this will be an ongoing trend forward in major event final tables where they hire a coach?
From what I understand, it has been for at least some of the participants. I'm always shocked when I hear of guys who just kind of mail it in until the final table. The guys who take the approach of, I'm just going to play a few events between now and then, relax, enjoy myself, and just kind of hope for the best. It's what an insane thing to do. You basically cashed in a lottery ticket that now you have the ability to improve upon. And to me, it's you really have to either not care or just be so incredibly brash that you think that you can't improve to not put that kind of time.
Right.
It's imagine in a sports scenario. Oh, well, actually, it happens in a sports scenario. Imagine in college football if football teams just took off between their last game and the championship.
Mm-hmm.
We're just it's 45 days. Let's all relax and heal, and we'll just show up and play for a national title. Not in a million years. And these guys are the best at what they do. Exactly. And they're going against the best at what they do. So it's you have all the information available at your fingertips. You have 1,000,001 different ways to go about it. And most importantly, the whole purpose of the layoff, from a player standpoint, isn't necessarily to be able to exploit everyone, even though that's ultimately what it should be used for. But get your name out there. This is your one and only shot to market yourself. And I know that there's very little marketing available in poker, and there isn't really a ton of benefit to doing it, at least not immediately. But hey, what better shot than that? Like, that's what I really like most about Jason's approach with Rust. It's like, I'm going to make you the best player possible, and I'm going to get your foot in the door to at least give you some sort of exposure that you deserve.
For sure.
And it's like, if you run with it, awesome. If not, hey, we tried.
Exactly. So, interesting question would be Russell hired Jason, and Matt Berkey would hire.
I really don't know. I'm very fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of great poker minds. Phil Collins is one of my friends. He's already final tabled the main. Brent Hanks is one of my friends who, when online was around, he was one of the best. He's still very good in a live scenario. I'm friends with Jay. I'm friends with Alan. It's like all these guys are, in my close inner circle that would be happy to just show up and, do whatever it is to help me get better. I'm also like, a head case. It's like I have to do the legwork on my own. You know what I mean? It's like if I were studying for a big test, I wouldn't necessarily like want to be surrounded by the most intelligent people in that subject. I would first want to like exhaust the subject on my own and gather as much information as I could, and then get like the best of the best around me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I got you. All right. So you said that experience with Jason Somerville and Russell inspired you to consider at least running some poker camps. And last fall, I was lucky enough to be invited to the first one. Thank you. And is this something you may continue? And if so, can you describe why you think it's beneficial for players?
Okay, so like for me, it's like a double-edged sword. I greatly enjoy the teaching aspect of the game, and more importantly, I think it makes it a lot better. And the way we did the final table was like so much fun and so beneficial. But I also thought that like it could be greatly streamlined. It was kind of like, Jay Carver didn't have a ton of time really to do much, and his main focus was having it as close to a real life scenario as possible for Rust. So, he didn't have time to go and get the technology and all those things like that.
Right.
But it's like, it's available. And I just think that like, the way online kids are able to analyze hundreds of thousands of hand histories, that can apply on a much smaller scale on the live thing. But more importantly, from it, you can derive the theory. And, that's the biggest thing that I personally like to work on. It's like the mechanics of the game will come, and, there's a lot of standard stuff, and you can do a little bit of manipulating here and there. But if you don't have a why behind what you're doing, it's effectively worthless. If you just start check raising and don't know why, you might get some results in the early goings of it, but eventually you're just going to start getting your head smashed in. And so, like, when we did the camp, I basically just did it as a trial run to see if it was something that I could scale to where I wanted to do it a few times a year. I'm still, like, really on the fence with it for a few reasons. One, it's like, man, giving away any information to anybody just seems, like, so psychotic in a game where the edges are becoming so incredibly thin.
Yeah.
And two, it's just like, it's a lot of work. Like, as much fun as I had doing it, and, as much as I may have learned actually from it, it's a lot to, like, run a live game 3 days a week and then do theory another 3.
Yeah.
Even if you scale it down to, like, a 3-day camp or a 5-day camp, it's like, you're looking at a week long of 6 to 8 hour days where, you're just really putting in a grind. And hey, I'm all for it. It's just, I don't know that I'm necessarily incentivized to do it.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely a lot of work. Just so that we're clear, you ran the camp and then you finished second in the tournament, very shortly after. I like to take a little bit of credit for that. Anyway.
I mean, all right. I don't know that we really touched on much that would be applicable to that tournament, but hey, if you want to correlate the two, so be it.
All right. All right. So obviously the topic everybody kind of wants to talk about is the big game. So now you're definitely atop of the cash game world. You're playing the biggest games in Vegas. You're in the Ivy Room. So without getting yourself in trouble, tell us a little bit about the big game and were you nervous at first sitting down playing for life-changing money?
I have a sickness. That's pretty much the best way I can describe it. I have an absolute detachment of money. It's awful. It's very beneficial when you don't have a lot of it, but when you come into some of it, it becomes like, a little bit of a double-edged sword. When I first sat down, we were playing 200, 400, 20K min, I think. And I had a pretty big piece of my action. And I remember getting it in towards the end of the session with top 2 on Jack 9-3 versus this guy Scott, who, this is no joke, literally grinds 1-3 just for the love of the game. Like, I've known him pretty much since I moved out to Vegas. I used to play like Bellagio 510 with him way back in the day. And I've just always known him to be pretty tight. And when the game's really small, like 20K min, or even sometimes when it's the 50K min, he'll hop in. Just because, like, he has the money and he really enjoys playing. Super nice guy. But he's tight. And I just remember having Jack 9 on Jack 9-3, 2 diamonds, and getting in 30K each, and just knowing I was stone dead. Sure enough, he had a set of threes. We ran it twice. I bricked both. And I just remember, like, not feeling that badly about it. And that was when I kind of realized, like, the stakes just don't really matter. And even though I had a pretty big piece of myself, I could afford it. And moving forward, I was able to sell a little bit more action so that I wasn't really in harm's way. And, to be quite honest, it's like I play the same style there as I do in a 5-10 game, which can easily be why I'm on a massive downswing at the moment. But it's my style. It's the way I play. I'm extremely volatile. I make games big. I drive a lot of action, and when I run bad, I really, really take the worst of
It happens. All right. So a couple weeks ago, Durr shows up at the big game and takes your direct right. I think both of you have a similar style. So how is it like to play with Tom Durr Dwan?
He's like the online version of me. He's like infinitely better at 100 big blind play than I will ever be. And we definitely do have a similar style in that we're like both pretty laggy, both doing like some out of the box type things. But I personally would prefer to play with him. Not because I think he's any less capable, but just because I think he's so much stronger in a 100 blind scenario. That wasn't the first time I played with him either. He's gotten like some guest appearances in the game, maybe 5 or 6 times over the last year. It is what it is. It's like, when you start playing 10-20 on the regular and you start running into guys like Ike and Fever and all these guys, like, you start brushing elbows with people who have a lot of success in this game, and you realize that, like, hey, maybe I belong in that same category. And when you start beating them or, whatever, it's like they're your peers.
Yeah.
And as thick as Durr is, and as much as he's accomplished, it's like he's just another kid sitting down with a large sum of money who's very good at this game. And it's like, I'm just going to play accordingly. He gets the best of me sometimes, I get the best of him sometimes. It is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. So $1 million pots. Obviously, we want to talk about those. How many have you played? Tell us when you won. Tell us when you lost. We definitely are intrigued.
All right, I've played $9 million pots.
Jesus.
I've won 6 and I've lost 3. I'll tell you the least interesting one that I lost, just because it's the funniest one. Over the summer, a bunch of the guys from Macau come in, and the game really gets big. We pretty much play 3-6-12 every day. And there was this guy who I had never played with before, who was supposedly not very good, just like an amateur of sorts. I opened queens under the gun, get called by the button, he squeezes the big blind. And from what I was told by everybody else, it's like he gambles, but never really in a pre-flop situation. Like, you know, he probably has or has something close to it. So I like to just flat, and we're about 500K effective. Without remembering the necessary line or anything like that, he pretty much just like bet shove on a 9-7-5 10 6 board where any 8 becomes a straight.
Right.
And he was over shoving the river. Like, I think he ripped for like 280 on the river. And the pot might have been like, you know, maybe it was even more. He might have ripped for like 300 on the river. Like, no, because that's not over shoving.
For us civilians,
it was pretty close. He was shoving for about pot on the river, so like maybe 350 on the river or so.
Wait, Burke. So for us civilians, you're talking about 300,000. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, yeah. We gotta clarify. You know, we don't play for that.
Yeah, no, I understand. I was just like trying to run the line through my head. I think he 3-bet to like 15K. I called. Flop, he might have bet like another 15 or 20,000. I called again. Turn, he bets like 35,000. I called again. And then the river, when it put the one-liner out there, he just ripped it for like 300, 350, whatever it was. I don't know. It was like over pot. And I didn't think for very long because it's just like, okay, I know this guy should have it, but this line just looks super bluffy. And, you know, from what I'm told, he's like never going to have an 8 here in a 3-bet pot.
Right.
So he should just have ace-king. Because if he has kings or aces, he's certainly not doing this. It would just be insane. So I was like, all right, I call. And he tables 2 kings. Like, he just absolutely knew. And, you know, it's one of these things, like, you know, when you start playing with guys at this level for this amount of money, you just can't let anything get under your skin.
Right.
And, you know, this guy's considered an amateur, so the banter at the table was just like really celebratory for him. They're just like, you know, praising him for making such a good shove and all this other stuff. And I remember Bobby Baldwin almost fell out of his seat when he saw the 2 hands get turned over. Like, he turns over kings, and he's just waiting for the pot to get shipped to me, and I'm just like, they're good. Shoved his way, and he's just like, what the hell could you have had? You know, it's just one of those scenarios where I just really thought I was going to be right. Clearly that wasn't the case. I'm pretty sure every $1 million pot I've ever won was off of one guy in particular. We battle a lot. He's by far the best in the game. And he's the CEO, which makes it even more tilting that he's so good. Probably the most interesting one that I can recall was I opened 2-8. He 3-bet me from the button, which is just like really commonplace with us. We both like sit relatively deep always. He always has the table covered.
Wow.
And then this young Macau pro cold calls from the big blind and has about 100K effective. Me and the other player are about 500, I think. And it was like a very strange hand. So it comes 8 deuce deuce. I had 8. And it checks through. The turn is then a 4. Again, it goes big blind check. I check again, and the 3-better leads for, I want to say, like 30 into 60-ish. The big blind calls. I elect to just call. River is a queen. The big blind shoves for 65,000. Okay. I just call.
Yeah, of course, inducing.
Yeah, and the guy I go to war with back jam, or I guess like over jams behind me for like $250,000, maybe a little bit more, I guess. And I beat him in.
Yeah, of course.
First call. Like, you know, in the back of my head, I'm a little sick, thinking like, you know, this could easily be queen's full.
Mm-hmm.
And the big blind had floated with ace queen off, and he had turned a set of 4s on the turn. So I ended up set over setting him for like $1 million pot when it was all said and done.
Whee! All right.
Those were the glory days.
Those are the glory days. All right, so Do you picture the big game ever being televised? I know there was a little bit of talk about it. Do you think it could happen?
Yeah, it's gonna happen this summer. Not the game I play in. It's gonna be 500K min or maybe a million min cash game that is going to run sometime during the series. I'm not certain. I know that they're also doing a 500K tournament that's going to be televised.
Wow.
It's the same people. I'm not exactly certain of the details.
Yeah.
As to who's doing it or like where they're going to televise it or anything along those lines. I just know that they're 100% doing a big buy-in tournament and 100% doing a big buy-in cash game that's going to be televised, similar to like a high-stakes poker deal.
Wow.
So look for that. I highly doubt I'll get invited, though crossing my fingers, of course.
We'll push for you.
Yeah. I think you're going to see like more name guys. You're going to see more of the Robles and Durs, and then a lot more of the guys that I just generally play with.
Mm-hmm.
JRB and Bobby Bob will for sure be in there.
Right. Okay. I think that's pretty awesome. So you guys heard it here first. High stakes cash games back on TV. All right. So Dan O'Brien. So for those who don't know, Dan is your roommate. You two are very competitive, and you bet on everything from chip stacking, which I was there, and video game matches, which are widely spread through the Twitter battles. Can you share a funny Dan O'Brien story?
Jeez, funny Dan O'Brien story. I mean, where to begin? All right, I have easily the best Dan O'Brien story. So we're all hanging out in the kitchen, me, him, and a couple of my other roommates. This is probably 2 years ago, maybe. And Dan is just making the fattest peanut butter and jelly sandwich you've ever seen in your entire life. He may have even been making two. I can't really quite recall. And for whatever reason, I was using the milk. I must have been like making something macaroni and cheese or something along those, maybe oatmeal. I don't know. Anyway, so we had a full gallon of milk, and then we had like just the remnants of some milk. So I took both gallons out, and I used the remnants of the first one, throw it away, whatever. Or I didn't throw it away. That's right. I left it on the counter. And then I have the other one. And the way the whole thing's set up is we have an island in the middle of the kitchen, and the refrigerator's to the right of it, and then behind it are like cabinets and another countertop. So I'm using the countertop to the farthest on the right, and Dan's using the island. So the countertop is behind my back, and I just hadn't put the milk back yet, and it's behind me. And Dan finally completes his masterpiece of these massive peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I'm fairly certain he's already 3 bites in because he just can't help himself. When he goes to the refrigerator to get the milk, and lo and behold, there's no milk. But he knew that there was a gallon just earlier that day, at least. And he looks at our other roommate, Tyler, and he goes, "There's no milk?" And Tyler is like, as he's saying that, he has his back to me. And I like move a little bit so Tyler can see that the milk is behind me. And Tyler just smiles and goes, "We're out, bud." Dan grabs his plate full of peanut butter and jelly, spikes them to the ground, watching them just explode everywhere. And then I casually tap him on the shoulder and reveal to him that there's an entire gallon of milk behind me.
Oh my god. That is so good.
I know the phrase like "you had to be there" is like so cliche, but as funny as this sounds, I can't even explain to you what it was like in real time. I've never been so close to throwing up from laughing so hard.
So he slams all the peanut butter and jelly on the floor?
Just smashed them on the ground. I mean, an explosion of peanut butter everywhere. And then we're like scrambling. We had just gotten our dog. We're like scrambling so that he doesn't get in there and just have a feast. Trying to like scrape the peanut butter and jelly off the floor.
Oh man, that is really funny.
I mean, until you see a grown man take a sandwich and just smash it on the ground, you haven't lived life.
Oh man, that's a good one. I'll have to tweet at Dan. All right, so let's talk a little bit of strategy. This will be these are a couple questions that came in either through my email or through the forum. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
So this question comes from Dr. Trisha Gardner. She says, "I'd love it if Matt could discuss the importance of psychology at the higher stakes. I think that as technical skill increases, psychology becomes so much more important. Can you talk a little bit about that and perhaps some examples?"
Okay. So I think she really hits the nail on the head. I don't really think it matters the stake level you're playing. I think so much of this game is just based around human nature, and um, it's a game of incomplete information, but people give so much away. So there's like so much that you can deduce just through like a person's mindset, a person's actions, a person's feelings towards you in particular. Whatever the case may be, but particularly at the high stakes, it's a real dog eat dog world. So you know when when you get unlucky, when you start running bad, more importantly, when you take a few needles, because that's just kind of the nature of the game. These guys are all there ready to pounce on it. And in a lot of instances, we'll play sessions where there will only be one loser.
Yeah.
And it's not really that uncommon. And there have been quite a number of times where it was me. And it's not even necessarily a tilt thing or anything like that. It's just as momentum gets taken away from you, psychologically, these guys are able to play so much better. They're able to play so much more fearlessly when they see you wounded and they understand that you're human and the stuff you're doing isn't always flawless. So getting in the heads of these guys, especially the better players, the one I referred to earlier where we kind of go to war a lot, it's like you really have to get on the same mindset as them. And it's not a leveling thing. It's being in tune to their emotions and more importantly, just the way they think. Like having a good understanding of how we naturally think in our default settings, and then trying to change that thought process to something more in tune to taking advantage of that default way of thinking is just incredibly advantageous. It's certainly something that I try to be really aware of and work on as best I can. Not really too much into meditation or anything like that, but more so once you start to examine theory, you get out of the vacuum of in a perfect world, and you start being much more aware of momentum and your current image and the person you're up against image, and the history that the two you might have. I know this all sounds very trite and things that most people consider quite often, but in reality they don't. People play hands very black and white. It's they might be able to take it to the level of employing a strategy and things like that, but it's still always in this vacuum scenario. They don't take into consideration that adjustments are being made on the fly all the time, and a lot of it's going to rely on the emotional status of your opponent. You had sent me a hand history the other day of a hand that was posted in your forum, and one of the first things the kid said was that his opponent was playing way too loosely and floating a lot post flop and always bets when checked. This scenario came up where they were both fairly shallow. The hero had jacks and it came 10 high. And rather than just checking and punishing this kid because he bets way too often, he just bets into him and gives him a reasonable price to float with what's likely going to be backdoors or overs or whatever the case may be. And, I don't know what the end result of the hand was. I know the run out was really shitty for Jack.
Yeah.
And my guess is he probably lost the hand. Or paid off the hand or made a tight fold, whatever the case may be. But it's there was an easy layup way to play the hand if you're actually paying attention to the reads that you clearly know.
Yeah.
But instead, you're like ignoring the psychological aspect of everything and just getting into the mechanics of it all, and like taking this linear approach to the game that is way, way, way more abstract than that. It's it's a game that can literally be played in theory, and that's just like an incredibly difficult thing for most people to do, especially men. We think on such a logical plane of thought, and everything needs to connect. It needs to be A to B to C. And a lot of times that blinds us from the more creative, abstract, theoretical lines to take. We're all emotionally dead, so we have that advantage going for us. But it's an ongoing process. Like I literally feel like this is a topic I could talk about forever. I don't want to like over exhaust it, but also like the thing I didn't even touch on is just the swings, the emotional ups and downs that you suffer yourself. Yeah. Like all of this is psychological. It's all stuff that we have to acknowledge, and things that are just like incredibly crucial in moving forward in any aspect. People like think that we're just out there playing a card game where the best hand speaks, but in reality, it's like it's psychological warfare. It's like it comes down to the nuts and bolts of hand versus hand, but you're really just going to war with opponents, and if you're a mental midget of any sort, you're just going to continually be exploited and just despise this game for all it's worth.
Yeah, that's definitely psychology. I think has become an underrated aspect of the game as technical skill has like come to the forefront. Especially from online.
As the game's evolved and people have gotten a lot better, they just try to play more perfectly than their opponents, like not understanding that that's just really not something that we're capable of doing as human beings. For me personally, I saw it a lot in tournament play. I told you I'm very close with a lot of guys who used to just absolutely crush online. And as the games got a little bit tougher, I would hear them talk strategy, and it's just like, yeah, I'm just going to play perfectly. You're going to play perfectly. And it's like, what if, today you're just not in the mood to play perfectly? What if you just don't want to raise fold ace queen? Like, that sounds miserable to me. Like, how's your adjustment to play more flawlessly than the next guy? And, from there it was like, well, I can't do that because it sucks. And I'm not trying to be a robot. And
right.
If I thought a robot could beat this game, I'd build one. You know what I mean? So I kind of got out of the box myself personally, like with tournaments. It was like, oh, I just keep raising and getting exploited because of it. So I'm just going to stop. And I'm just going to limp and keep seeing a lot of flops because I know that to be my strength. And people are going to think I'm really, really bad. And they do. They think I'm the worst. And it's like, great. That's exactly what I want. It's like, it's great to have fear and respect in this game, but it's equally as good to just have as much action be thrown your way because people think you're rotten.
Yeah.
Like, I'll take some combination of the three.
Yeah, that's definitely very interesting. Even like, through our discussions and stuff like that, like you've made me think outside the box huge where I came from an online background. So definitely, I think all the points you said are definitely completely valid, 100%. So another question. This one came from the Red Chip Poker Forum. He says, I would be interested in knowing why high stakes regs are so into overbetting, even on flop and turn. And can this be applied in less difficult games?
It can be applied in every game for sure. Well, every game of skill levels, but it certainly is deep stack play. Overbetting has very little purpose in a 100 blind game. Just, in the sense that, like, you're either going to be losing value or you're just going to start getting looked up more often. I think the big reason why you see it a lot in high-stakes deep games is because you have a lot of great minds going against one another. And guys just don't want to give up. So I think it's becoming like a more creative way to getting thin value, thin bluffs through on tougher opponents. And to be quite honest, I really don't see it terribly often. When I see it, it's like more overbet shoves, and I would say it's much more along the lines of straight value. I don't really see too many guys doing it as bluffs. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure it's out there, especially like in the online realm, but it's expensive. If you're not good at it, if you're not completely precise at it, you're going to go broke in a hurry. So it's definitely something to work into your game. I personally love it, though I don't do it as often as I would like. But I wouldn't discredit any single move in poker. Like,
right.
You should have everything available to you at all times. Like, don't ever let somebody tell you that like doing this is bad versus that, etc. It's like, there's a reason to limp, there's a reason to call, there's a reason to 3-bet. As long as you have a why, you can make a justifiable argument for taking any sort of action.
Right. I think that's very interesting. And it's interesting because as you get better, the why becomes longer, right?
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure. It's not about just getting to a surface why. It's exploring the depths of that why, and then creating a strategy from it. I think it's really easy for us all to go out there and just wing it and play, our standard ABC game. But that's just like default thinking where we're kind of in la la land and just playing very mechanically. And there's no real why to it. It might be a predetermined why that we figured out a long time ago, but to anybody who's actually on a thinking level, they're just going to outmaneuver you very quickly because they are examining the why you're doing what you're doing, and you're not changing. And it becomes like very difficult for you to do anything other than show the best hand to win.
Got it. Okay, so I have another question that got emailed in. I'd like to hear. He says, "I like to hear about playing frequencies versus playing the player in a specific hand. What do you look for when you're betting, or do you look for any specific tells? In other words, are you thinking about frequencies, or are you thinking about the player right now? Or maybe both."
Very good question. How to answer? I think first and foremost, in a live venue, you should be playing exploitively. So the term player dependent couldn't be any more applicable. That being said, when it's like close, like where you have to go for value, or you have to go for a bluff, whatever the case may be, and you don't think that you're going to get called that often, that's when I'll try to like balance with the opposite of it. So say I'm going for a pot size value bet on the river, and I just don't really expect to get called whether I bet a tenth of the pot or pot.
Right.
I'm going to choose the larger sizing, and I'm going to do so because I assume that's what I would be bluffing for in that spot as well. That's probably as far as I go considering frequency.
Got it.
That's not entirely true. Obviously, you're trying to maintain some sort of balance throughout the course of it all, especially if you're playing with the same people over and over again. But when guys leave themselves open to being exploited, you shouldn't pass on it just because it's not necessarily within the frequency range.
Got it. Okay, so 2 more questions, and then we'll take some viewer questions. They are absolutely killing me. They want some questions in. So I'll ask 2 more questions, and then we'll take some viewer questions. If you want, you can grab some water and stuff. I'm pretty sure these guys are gonna want you here for a little while.
I'm ready to roll.
All right. So this question comes from Brian Lamanna. He asks, how much protein do we have to take to get arms like yours?
All right. So, it's funny because I often argue with him about nutrition and fitness and things like that, and if you've ever taken a look at the man, and you know he doesn't know shit about shit, but I'll entertain it anyway. I mean, enough is the answer. It's like, he's never going to get arms like me. I'm a genetic freak when it comes to that. I wish they were smaller. I'd much rather be more balanced. I think Jakun is a much better person to ask about any sort of physique or desirable attribute. But if you stick to the half a gram to gram per pound, you should do okay with yourself.
Great answer. Okay, so last question, and this question comes from Dan O'Brien himself. Why does Sidney Crosby play so soft and seems to show a lack of respect for the game of hockey?
I feel like you cleaned that question up, as I don't think I've ever heard Dan refer to Sidney Crosby without saying the word "puck." That being said, I find that the question is very disrespectful for the greatest player in the game at the moment, and I just don't understand why he hates on the guy so much. It's like, somewhere along the line, Dan convinced himself he's a hockey player. I don't know where the credentials come from. He considers himself a tough guy because he always has to protect our other roommate Tyler from getting into fights, but only because Tyler is somehow smaller than Dan, which is tough enough in and of itself. So I don't know. I mean, we've all seen Sidney play. I think it speaks for itself.
Yeah, the guy definitely has some game. All right, so that is all the questions that are prepared, and then now we'll be able to take some viewer questions for you guys. So definitely thank you, Matt, for answering all those questions. We'll take a couple viewer questions, and then we'll let you be on your way, as long as they let us get through it. So definitely, guys, write in your questions now, and I'll look them. I could look them up and ask them as we go. So I could go up a little bit and then see some stuff.
You forgot about the 10-second delay.
Yeah. Let's wait 10 seconds.
I assume it's 10 seconds. It might be longer. Who knows?
Okay. So Jerry asked, you taught me early on that Omaha was a game you used to learn post-flop play. Can you explain that just a little? It changed my game. So I'm assuming this person like used to work with you maybe, and he says that you told him that Omaha is a game that taught him post-flop play. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. I'm actually guessing that's like Jerry from this really old forum I used to be part of back in the day, Donkey Fish Poker. But yeah, no, I learned how to I started learning how to play Omaha in like 05 maybe. I wasn't very good, but then again, nobody else was either. And it basically taught me how to be really sticky post. Back then it was like, we were playing shallow, but it didn't matter. People's tendencies were just like really rotten. They would be one and done quite often. They would bet fold too much, whatever the case may be. So it basically taught me like the value in floating, the value in barreling. It greatly helped me understand ranges and board textures, and hand equity, things along those lines. From there, I was able to like compound it into Hold'em, which in a post-flop scenario is a much simpler game. I would never like call Hold'em in general a simpler game. I actually think it's like a more pure form of poker than Omaha, just because if you get two guys playing Omaha really well, the money's just going to pretty consistently go in. Yeah. Where you can get two guys who are pretty good at Hold'em, and depending on their strategies, one can just abuse the other through a little creativity, switching up frequencies, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, basically, Omaha really taught me everything. Like, you have to be pretty crisp on understanding your opponent's range in order to ever be continuing in spots where you have marginal equity. And that's pretty much what Hold'em is. It's just always having marginal equity. It also taught me the power of the backdoor. And it's like, once you start to realize these things, you can start doing things that are just so incredibly tough to counteract against in Hold'em. Um, you know, you really start to understand the difference between position and out of position, and how you can't play the two the same. People really harp on that, like, position is uh, pretty much what defines a massive edge in Hold'em. And of course, that's true. Like, when you're in position, you hold a massive edge, but you have to capitalize on that edge. It's not just inherent to you being in position. Like, yeah, of course, you have the upper hand in certain areas, but a weak player isn't just going to all of a sudden start dominating a skilled player. And to the counterpoint of that, it's like you can still greatly exploit people when you're out of position if you thought all this through and are a pretty advanced post flop player.
Awesome. Just real quick, so that we kind of have a time frame. Are you good for maybe half an hour more, and then we're done?
Whatever you want, man. I got nothing to do.
I know you're moving and stuff, so you got nothing right now. Okay.
I'm in no rush to pack boxes.
Awesome. So, Chip Extractor from the chat asks, sorry, there's so many questions coming in. You're very popular right now. Okay.
Right.
Matt, without aggressive shot taking, do you ever make it to the higher stakes? Also, did that aggressive style on and off the table make the difference in your reaching the level you are now?
I think you can make the stake jumps without aggressive shot taking, assuming that you are able to set yourself up in some other fashion. So ironically, like, I didn't get to playing high stakes cash through playing cash. I made the bulk of my money in tournaments.
Yeah.
It's like I've done very well for myself in cash, but without these tournament scores, I'd still likely be playing like 10-20, taking shots at 25-50. Basically it's like you need to be doing things to create opportunities for yourself. You need to be making the right relationships. You need to be taking aggressive shots in high value tournaments just as much as juicy cash games. But most importantly, it's like without that aggressive shot taking, I would have never like understood how to devalue myself from money and how to completely remove myself from the environment I'm in and just play. So, if I had just been grinding it out at 2-5 and 5-10 here and there, and then just continually hit for tournament scores, and then tried to play high stakes, I would have never been equipped to do so.
Definitely.
I think it's infinitely more difficult to try to translate a tournament skill set into cash than it is a cash skill set into tournaments. And I think the fact that I learned cash first and I learned to just play with my last cent on the table. I mean, I can't even begin to count how often I had case money on the table, where it's just like you go broke in this game and you're basically broke in life. And I mean, I'm not just saying like my last $1,000 at 2-5. I'm saying like, my last $10,000 at 10-20, or whatever the case may be. It's like it's a part of being a calculated risk taker. Even to the sense of being a gambler. It's like we try to deflect from the fact that we gamble for a living, but it's an inherent part of what we do. And you have to have a little bit of the sickness. And it's like, I'm very fortunate in that I don't gravitate towards pit games or sports betting or anything like that. Like, I have this mental concept of needing an edge. So it's like, no part of me wants to take shots at things where I know the edge is inherently fixed for the other side.
Right.
But put me in an Omaha game with, my last little bit of cash where I think I'm a small favorite, and I all of a sudden feel very comfortable doing so. And I do think that that's like part of having that killer instinct of getting good enough to achieve the highest level.
Awesome. Okay. The next question comes from Mountain777, and he asks, Can you talk a little bit about the Insta Poker packs? And do you like how much work did you do to create them, and do you plan on making any more?
Instant poker was an awesome opportunity when it was presented to me a few years ago, or at least I thought it was going to be. The product itself, I think, is like one of the best out there. Um, it's really difficult because it's it's tough on the authors. It's very time consuming for me to create a pack. Just doing like a 15 hand pack takes me upwards of like 40 or 50 hours.
Wow.
And for me, it just like became a lot less worth it. Our target audience was supposed to be recreational players, but it's like if you play the packs, you understand that in a general sense, it's geared much more towards guys who are trying to take that next step. And quite frankly, that market's just very small. So right now we're kind of in limbo. Um, it's not my baby. I was just one of the authors, so it's more up to the owner as to like how he wants to move forward and things like that. So that's why you really haven't seen any packs out of me or Dan as of late. I personally am hoping that something happens where we break through and catch fire, because I do think the product is just absolutely fantastic. It's just right now it's of no worth for me to put in that kind of time towards it.
Got it. Yeah, that's very interesting. The next question comes from Big Dog. He says, you never really explained how you started playing high stakes. I'm not sure. I think
as far as the big game.
Yeah, sure. He didn't really elaborate, so that's what I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, as far as playing 5-10 or above, that's just pretty much what I've done since day one. I was playing 5-10 within the first year of playing because I was in college and I didn't care if I went broke. I was like taking out an extra. I think I was taking out like an extra $2,500 a semester on my student loan, basically to bankroll myself. And if I could find a 5-10 game, I played it. Moving to Vegas, like I got into 10-20 rather quickly, did okay, survived, played tournaments, had cashes, whatever. As far as the big game in Ivy's room, I'm really good friends with one of the businessmen that plays the game. We had played a ton of middling stakes, like anywhere from 2-5-10 all the way up to like 10-20-40. And he just absolutely loved my action from day one. It's like one of those things. Enough guys don't talk about like the opportunities that are presented to you at the card table. So many people see it as a black and white scenario where you're just there to exploit people.
Right.
But it's like when you're talking about getting into the higher games where there's a lot of money being thrown around. It's like a lot of these guys are there because they just really enjoy competition. And in these scenarios, it's like I'm a favorite to beat him, of course. But I don't need to be obvious about it. I don't need to torture the guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like it became this big fun back and forth between him and I. Like, we would have like good social interaction, very good, intelligent conversation between one another. He's an older gentleman who has like just more money than God, and it's like he has a lot of good advice for somebody who's young and trying to figure it all out. And it's like when you start to build these kinds of relationships, it can potentially lead to better opportunities. It's like, he used to slow roll me in 10K pots, and I just wouldn't think twice about it because he's enjoying himself, and we're going to play many more 10K pots.
Exactly.
And it's like, it is what it is. Like, there's no room to get butt hurt in a scenario where a guy's literally just trying to have fun. And, it all really fell in order. He had given me like a standing invite to check the game out for a couple of years. And prior to 2013, I was basically just floating by, hanging around with a very small role, fluctuating between like 0 and 50K at any time. And it's like I can't go play a 20K buy-in cash game, so like I just never really took him up on it. And then after 2013, he was like, "Hey, you came into some money. Why don't you come give it a shot?" I was like, "As long as they'll have me, that's fine by me." And it's just turned out to be like one of the best experiences of my life. And that's considering the swings that like I can't even fathom. I mean, if somebody had ever told me that I would go on an up or down swing that I have suffered throughout the last year, I would have told you that I would have quit poker long before either one of them would come to fruition.
Up or down millions.
It's just commonplace.
Yeah, it's just it's common in those games to be up or down millions in like a month or 2 months exactly.
I mean, session.
A session,
like,
yeah.
I haven't had $1 million loser yet, but last summer I had $1 million winner. I mean, it's like it's not that uncommon.
Exactly. So another question that comes from Trisha is, how does someone break through from an intermediate level of thought to an advanced level?
I think spending a lot of time like self-actualizing and like really looking inward as to like it's so hard to do. It's like being really truthful with yourself as to what your current capabilities are, what your ceiling is, what people who are better than you are doing, what people who are worse than you are doing. Just being like very astute in those regards, and then just like being a student of life. It goes really far to spend some time like educating yourself on other subjects. Like if you have some interest, exhaust them a little bit and try to get to the bottom of it. It's way easier to conquer fitness than it is poker. And it's like if you can get along that line of thought towards something like a sport or nutrition or any subject that isn't poker, that's a little more finite and a little bit more able to be solved. I guess along those lines, it will carry over, and you can start to apply that same thought process to this incredibly complex game, and you just build off of everything. You lay a good foundation of knowing what your strengths are, knowing what your weaknesses are, knowing what your capabilities are, and knowing the trends of your opponent. And from there, you just continuously build, and it never ends. And that's the biggest thing that people have to be aware of, is that it's never going to end. So all the people who said that No Limit Hold'em was solved years and years ago, you're just looking at a completely different beast now. It's like the players of 2008 could never beat this game. And it's not because, the game was solved and then reinvented. It's just a never-ending cycle. People just keep finding a new way to beat it.
Exactly. It's pretty much common knowledge that like it's said that if you could succeed in poker, you could pretty much succeed in anything else.
I think so to a certain degree. I think it gets a little hairy when you talk about the guys who like have some short-term success in poker, but maybe aren't necessarily all there. Because this game really does lend itself to people who have like an addictive personality, people who have a little less moral value than the next guys. There's a lot of guys out there just owing sums of money that they'll never be able to pay and gambling away their absolute last dollar. I mean, I think there's a big difference between putting your last dollar in play as a calculated risk and putting your last dollar in play as a hope and a prayer. And I think there's a lot more of the latter than the former. So, those guys can accidentally succeed in the short run, but until we really get a few decades of sample size, it's really going to be tough to say like how successful anyone is. When it's all said and done, you might not ever hear of any of us again. There might just be a whole new wave of people who start the learning curve all over again. And, it's very feasible that when it's all said and done, you're not going to see that many Negranos and Helmuths, etc., from our generation moving forward. There just aren't going to be that many guys who can stand the test of time.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. So Bradley asks, what's the lowest buy-in tournament you'll play these days, or lowest cash game you'll play these days?
I would play much lower stake cash than tournaments. They're very torturous to me. Honestly, the buy-in doesn't really matter to me. It's more so what first would be. I'll waste my time happily in a $300 tournament if first is six figures. My guess would be a 1K. The series runs a lot of 1Ks and 1500s, and they do really well, and I play them all. I hate every lasting minute of it until day 3 rolls around. But as far as cash goes, I'll play the lowest uncapped game I can find, or the lowest deep game I can get into. There are a lot of 2-5 games that seem to be like upping their cap. I know the Win runs a 2-5 1500. I'll happily play that and enjoy myself. It's not the amount of money at stake that matters to me. It's being able to play how I want to play. And being 100 blinds deep, it's like, I don't care if we're playing 10-20 or 1-2. I'm going to be absolutely miserable.
Fair enough. This question is more like of the hand history that you had with Scott.
Okay.
You said that when Scott had a set of threes versus your top 2 of Jack 9, you kind of knew that you were beat. So they asked, like, why didn't you fold? So I'm guessing they just want you to, like, run over that hand again.
Sure. It's one of those things where I flatted his open and check raised the flop. And when he chooses to continue there, it's very certain that I'm beaten, or it's very likely that I'm beaten, I guess. But along the same lines, it's like I had Jack 9 on a Jack 9 3 board. There is a draw out there. He certainly could have Queen's plus. Basically, what I'm getting at is, my strategy there was to play for stacks, and I'm not going to allow myself to make a mistake just because the information I'm given slightly weights him towards having me beat. It's just like one of those things where it's like, if he has me beat, he has me beat. I'm not drawing dead. And I know that sounds like pretty elementary, and that I'm probably taking the worst of it there in the long run. But until you see the way people adjust to my style, it's very difficult to understand. There's just like so many spots where I'm certain I'm beaten, and the guy just wakes up with, a complete airball. Because it's just like human nature to fight aggression with aggression. And it's like, I can't allow myself to be wrong and be bluffed in a slot where my hand is that strong. If I had ace jack, okay, way different story. Like, I'll surrender. But when I pretty much have the board crippled from made hands, I'm blocking anything that really has me drawn dead. I think it's okay to just go broke there.
Makes sense. So what do you think about WSOP events like Colossal, or Colossus, sorry? Good, bad, indifferent, or any advice that you have for new players, how to prepare?
What's WSOP Colossus?
It's this $500 event, and I believe it's a 5 million guarantee.
Yeah, I heard about that. I love it. I love anything that has a name, that has a guarantee, that I don't care. Let them run a $1 tournament. I'll be there with bells on. Like, I absolutely love anything that will bring people out in droves. It's like last summer I signed up the day before for the was it the Millionaire Maker or it was the Monster Stack. Signed up the day before. I was like alternate 150. I show up and I don't get to play till 7 p.m. from a noon tournament. And it's like, I could be miserable, or I could just be thankful that 10,000 people showed up to a $1,500 event. Like, poker's alive, guys. This is fantastic. And I hope to see them do more of that stuff. I know the trend is like, or the common thought is that it's the World Series. It should put all the best in the world on display. And thus there should be a mix of all the games. But it's just like, that's not the landscape we're dealing with. No Limit Hold'em is by far and away the premier game, and I think we should showcase it. And it's like, yeah, there's way less meaning to a bracelet these days, but there's not less meaning to the six-figure scores that you're getting alongside of them. So, I'm all for anything that the World Series does at this point. They can do no wrong by me.
Awesome. One interesting question that's kind of funny. It says that Berkey has been known to order a dozen scrambled eggs while playing in the Ivy Room. Can you ask him about that?
Who asked that question and how did they know?
I don't know.
I feel like Robo's watching.
It sounds it's like exploding bean Thormus. I'm not sure.
No idea who that is, but he's 100% spot on. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say. A dozen eggs is a nice meal as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I eat a lot of eggs. I eat a lot of eggs. I eat a lot of steak. I eat a lot of fish. I eat a lot of pretty much anything that's dead.
Oh boy, that's funny. Okay, so that's a funny question though. Some people are asking, are you going to play the online bracelet this year?
It's tough to say. I would love to. Like, it's nothing against playing online or anything like that. It's really tough to say. Like, the World Series is such a crazy time where when I bust an event, I'm not necessarily rushing home. I could be going to Aria, I could be going to Bellagio, I could be doing a million other things. Like, you kind of search and crave for a little bit of time off here and there too. So if it comes down to like me getting an hour to myself at the gym or playing an online bracelet event, I'm probably going to go to the gym. But yeah, if like things line up and I have the shot to do it, for sure.
They have there's more Ivy Room questions coming in. Also, on one of the first nights playing in Ivy's room, he almost got arrested as his backpack made a loud explosion during the game. Ask him about that.
Now I know who's asking. I didn't almost get arrested. I did, however, bring my own chili, which I haven't done since. And so I had these thermoses. They're really the best purchase that I've ever made. They're like 32 ounces, and they'll keep food hot for like hours on end. But they have a little rubber ring on the lid that like keeps them sealed. And apparently the ring had fallen off in the dishwasher, and I put the chili in there piping hot. Put the lid on, thought it was sealed tight. Was sitting in the game playing, and next thing I know, my backpack just blows up, and it's just smothered in chili. I guess like the steam had just built up, and eventually just popped the lid off because there was no vacuum seal. And yeah, I was quite embarrassed. Probably the worst thing that's happened to me from an embarrassment standpoint in that game.
That's pretty funny. Oh man. Okay, so there's another question that says, Matt, have you ever had an occasion where you had to have an intervention with your friend because he's losing control in like the poker lifestyle, quote unquote? Or do you wish you would have had an intervention with one of your friends?
No, I gotta tell you, I've been like really blessed with the people I surround myself with. Nobody's like gone off the deep end. Nobody's like been a degenerate gambler or just lost their mind. If anything, I've like been the one to do the stupid shit. It's like I've never like had to sit someone down and shake them and be like, you can't keep doing this to yourself and your family and all this debt or anything like that. But it's like at the same time when I was just getting out of college and I finally had my first taste of a bankroll, just one random night I decided to play 2550 PLO on full tilt. I had like 60,000 in my net teller account, and it just I might have started at like 510 and I got stuck, and I moved to 1020 and got stuck, and then I moved to 2550, and the next thing I know I'm playing 3 tables of 2550 on full tilt and 3 tables on stars, and I have 50 of the 60,000 in play, and I'm just like watching each table get felted one by one, and it's just like ridiculous things like that I did when I was very young and stupid. It wasn't like stuff where my friends had to jump in and intervene, There was more stuff where they were just like shaking their heads, saying like, I know you're good at this game, but what the hell are you doing to yourself? Like, why do you keep fighting an uphill battle? And eventually, like that stuff sunk in. And honestly, I regret it because it's money lost, but I don't regret like what I've learned from it. It's probably kept me away from the massive shot taking and the gambling and the sports betting and stuff like that. It's like I remember that pain, and I remember like gambling in a spot where I thought I had a defined edge and I wasn't even close. And I keep a lot of that in mind now, moving forward. So, fortunately, it never got to the point where it was too bad. But I've done some stupid stuff. One story in particular, Mansion Poker ran a free roll where it was the year after the Steelers beat the Seahawks in the Super Bowl, and they were opening up the first game of the season. And Mansion offered a 1K free roll where if you deposited, you could bet the Steelers to win and just free roll the bet. If you lost, you got your $1,000 back. If you won, they matched it. So at the time, I had a decent amount of money, and I staked like 20 people to do it. And the Steelers, of course, won. And I ended up having like 17 or 18,000 in my Mansion account when it was all said and done. And they had games as high as 200, 400, though they never ran. There was just like one guy who would constantly sit at the 200, 400 table with like 16,000 in front of him. So one day I just got like, I lost my mind, of course, for no good reason. I wasn't like stuck or anything. But I saw him sitting 200, 400, and I just kept telling myself, like, don't do it, don't do it. Next thing I know, I'm sitting in, and I'm basically playing a 20K cold hand, where I got dealt 8-10 suited the first hand. We just got it all in. And on Mansion, they didn't turn the cards over when you were all in, nor did they show you the cards in the hand history. So we get all in, it comes ace high and just runs out, and then I see the pot push to me, and I immediately get up and leave.
Oh my god. This is a pretty interesting question. Like you're pretty known for your like long ball style. And so they ask, what is the biggest advantage of playing long ball style versus small ball?
Well, you win more. I mean, you lose more when you lose, but you win more when you win. It's like, to me, small ball is just like such a tournament approach. I think, when you start playing deep stack cash in particular, it's very, very important to have the capabilities to do everything. But more importantly, it's like you want to have the ability to inflate pots. And if you're not that active, if you're checking often, if you're keeping pots small, you're not just going to be able to inflate pots at will when you have it. More importantly, it's like it's nice to be the action guy. I game select way less than most other guys because I can drive action in a dry game. I don't necessarily need people throwing money around for me to consider it to be a good game. I just need it not to be like insanely tough. Like that's more my discretion as to whether a game's worth playing or not. If it's the kind of game where everybody's 100 blinds deep, they all play pretty strong pre, and it's just a lot of 3 and 4 betting, it's not the game for me. But if it's 7 rocks who all they want to make sure of is that they don't get felted with one pair, sign me up. Like,
of course.
I'll just have a blast in a game like that. And I think it's just like really important moving forward. The game's going to gravitate that way. Tight is Right was a very archaic type of style. And I'm not saying like, you can't profit that way these days. Of course you can, but it's going to become more and more difficult moving forward. And if you haven't prepared yourself with the skill set to play a different type of style, it's just going to be really hard to make money.
Definitely. One last question, and then we'll wrap it up because I know you're uncomfortable where you're sitting. The last question is, what is the biggest hole in the average winning player's game that he's unaware of? Figure that's a good one to end it on.
It's actually a bad one because I don't really want to say.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We'll leave that one as a hush hush answer.
The best thing I can say is just know that there are not only holes but massive holes in the best game, myself included. I mean, insane gaps of being able to be exploited. If it weren't that case, we'd all be winning at an 80% clip, and we're just not anymore. Like, those days are long, long gone. I win like maybe half my sessions, a little bit more, like 60% of my sessions. But it's like you just make sure the wins are way larger than the losses.
Right.
Keep dissecting the game, you'll find
it. Awesome. Listen, Berk, it was obviously an honor to have you on the stream. We really appreciate it.
Happy to be here, kid.
All right, man. Anytime. So, with that said, I'll cut the stream and let you go and get your move on.
Can't wait.
All right. Good luck.
All right, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, man. Peace.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining me on the stream with Matt Berkey. Give us a follow. I'll have a series of streams with very interesting people. If you have any requests or anything, definitely shoot it in here, or tweet at me at Christian Poker, and I'll do my best to get in contact with the people you want to see. So with that said, peace.